right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. It's time for Legally Yours. And your host is John Fuller. He's, of course, an attorney here at the law firm of Fuller and Fuller. And your questions are an important part of this show. The phone number to call in right now is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, which is 622-9622. If you have a legal question, a legal circumstance that you need answers to, go ahead and call them in. The best suggestion is to call in early in the show because sometimes questions take more than a simple yes/no answer. So just my advice. Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good morning, Larry. Good morning to our listeners. I hope everyone had a happy and safe 4th of July holiday.
Right.
Mine was spent working, so it was nice to have the quiet of a 3-day weekend without the phones ringing so much. Work intensely. But I missed out on some of the festivities, so I certainly hope all our friends and listeners and you and your family all had a wonderful 4th of July holiday.
I saw one firework. I went outside, I saw one, like in the neighborhood. I said, that's enough. I went back.
Well, that's one more than I did, so I hope you looked at it really, really well, so you could say you looked at it for me.
In the intro, I implied that sometimes we're looking for a yes or no answer. It sounds like that's unreasonable, isn't it, in law?
Well, it is. I mean, it's one of the hardest things for law students. I have a lot of young people, and I have been invited to speak on more than one occasion at local high schools on career day and other particular days, law day, about the legal profession and what type of education pre-law one should take and that sort of thing. And one of the most difficult things of law school is to learn to think like a lawyer. We are so ingrained, I think, that there is an answer. You're in math, you're given an equation, or you're asked to solve an equation, and you come up with a definitive answer. Law is oftentimes, in fact, it's almost essentially shades of gray. Sometimes they're very definitive answers. And in criminal cases, you see usually very definitive answers. You have two choices, guilty or not guilty. You actually have three choices, a hung jury when they cannot decide guilt or innocence, and there's a mistrial and you have to come back and do it all over again. In civil cases, if you're in an automobile accident and you're injured and you sue the party who you allege caused the accident, caused the injury, and that you suffered damages, and that their action breached the standard of care of due care and was negligent. Well, you come to the question of damages, and one of the defenses is comparative negligence, which we have in Florida, which says that were you, as the injured party, also partially at fault? If you were, then the jury is instructed to determine what percentage of negligence was attributable to the defendant, the person who is being sued, and what percentage of negligence is attributed to the plaintiff or the person who was injured and is suing. And then they apply that percentage to whatever the ultimate damage award the jury gives. If the jury gives a $100,000 verdict for damages and determines that the plaintiff was 60% at fault, they recover a net verdict of $40,000 in that simple.
Oh, wow.
In that simple example.
I don't know that I ever heard that before.
So that's comparative negligence.
Wow.
Okay? So there are oftentimes shades of gray.
Wow.
And,
there's a whole load of questions I have just based on that, but you do have a phone call.
Very good.
Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Always
It's good to hear from you. I'm great. Thank you for calling.
Good. How's the lovely wife of yours?
Well, we're all doing well and blessed, and thank you
That's
for asking. And I hope you are feeling well and that all your family's doing well.
I'm much better. I have had some ups and downs lately, but I'm much better.
I recall we talked a month or so ago, and you said you had been under the weather. So I hope
I had
you
a
have.
little surgery, but
Well, I
I'm
hope
a lot
you've made
better than what I
a
was.
good and complete recovery with a great result.
Yeah. But I'm glad you were mentioning the subject of the negligence, because I was concerned about this family, I guess, that just won the suit against the sheriff department and the deputies that was awarded, I guess, the 2 point something million dollars. How much more I think they understand that there's a limit or something of the 200,000, which they pretty well have gotten a little amount of that. But how much more, I guess, given that they have to go through the state or whatever, how much more do you think they will get, and do you think they'll get much more since they have to, I guess, go before this procedure with the state and everything? I'll hang up and listen to you on the air, and thank you very much. It's always good listening to you.
Thank you, and thank you for calling. It's always good to hear from you. That's a good question. Unfortunately, since I know nothing about the details of that case, I did see the headlines in the paper, but I was in preparation for a major trial the last couple of weeks that we were involved with, and quite frankly did not follow up in any detail, so I have no specifics on it. What you're referring to is the principle of sovereign immunity. And all of our laws in Florida essentially derive from English common law. And there are exceptions to that by certain specific statutes, but in England there was a concept that was known as the king could do no wrong. So you couldn't sue the sovereign. In our country, we replaced the king with our government, and we had the principle of sovereign immunity that government could not be sued even if it was negligent. Because you're basically taking money away from taxpayers, and there was a public policy that government should be immune. And it became even more complicated with whether or not there were exceptions to it as to whether they were doing a governmental function or a proprietary function. And I won't get into that because it's very technical and beyond the scope of what we're talking about. But the legislature passed a law that said that you are limited in sovereign immunity cases where you sue a governmental entity, such as the state of Florida or Marion County, or some other governmental organization. They made an exception to the sovereign immunity bar, and they said, we will allow you to sue government, but we are going to put a number of limitations on that. One of them is we're going to put a cap on the amount of damages that you can get. The other is we are going to restrict the standard contingency percentage that your lawyer can be paid. If you get a verdict that is in excess of the sovereign immunity amount, then you have other remedies to try to get it. You can go to the legislature and ask if you can have a legislator who will agree to file what is called a claims bill, saying that this case against the government yielded a verdict because the damages and the liability was significant, and not particularly talking about this case, but damages in general, the liability was egregious, and these people deserve more, and the government owes it to them. And the legislature, if you get your claims bill passed, can then determine to pay an additional amount over and above the sovereign immunity cap. And they're very difficult to get, and they certainly don't pay you dollar for dollar, even if they do, because it's politically very unpopular to be sponsoring a bill to take money from the general revenue fund and tax coffers to pay John Doe, who had a claim against a county or a sheriff or some constitutional officer. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, and there's no way that I could predict what they might ultimately recover in a claims bill or under any other procedures that might be available. And quite frankly, I suspect it's problematic for their own lawyers to predict that because it involves the political process, and that's a difficult process to predict at any level on any subject.
Yeah, right. The phone lines are available if you'd like to call John right now. The number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-9622. And John, we have to take a little break, and we'll be right back. So if you call right now, you'll be on hold for about 90 seconds. This is The Source, WOCA. And Chick-fil-A at the Paddock Mall. We'll review your nominations and then select one deserving organization each month. We'll announce the winner and even read the winning entry on the air. Make sure to include the contact name and phone number of the organization that you are nominating. And thanks from your friends at WOCA and Chick-fil-A in the Paddock Mall.
Are you tired of not using your home's outdoor space for entertaining or relaxation because of all the bugs and leaves? Consider adding a beautiful screen room or glass enclosure. We are Superior Aluminum and Design, a family-owned and operated business with 20 years experience in the aluminum industry, and we are accredited by the Better Business Bureau. If you appreciate superior workmanship, call Superior Aluminum and Design at 817-8058 or visit us on the web at superiораluminumdesign.com.
Habitat for Humanity of Marion County is a ministry dedicated to improving lives by providing affordable and decent housing. Help them help others by visiting the Habitat for Humanity Ocala Restore at 926 Northwest 27th Avenue. To schedule a donation, give us a call at 401-0075 and we'll come pick it up. For more information, visit ocalarestore.org. Habitat for Humanity of Marion County. Building homes, building hope, building community.
News Talk 1370, WOCA invites you to discover your full business potential. News Talk Radio is the perfect environment for your advertising. WOCA's News Talk format pinpoints information-hungry, better educated, high-income adults, so use us to talk to them. Call 732-8000, 732-8000. We're Ocala News Talk Radio. News Talk 1370, WOCA.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala. All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock. Let's return now to John Fuller and Legally Yours. If you have a legal question, this is a good time to call. The number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-WOCA.
You know, I want to take a moment to let our listeners know how very fortunate we are to live in Marion County and to have the judges that we have in Marion County. We've always had good judges, but at this time we have a group of exceptionally hardworking, diligent judges. And I don't want to give any individual public accolades to any one judge because I don't want it to look like I'm trying to curry favor with anybody who I might try cases before or anything. But I made a comment that I wasn't able to do the show last week because I was working very hard to get ready for a major jury trial that was to be tried this week. And of course, the 4th of July was a holiday. Friday was closed, the courthouse was closed, offices were closed. I was working, and one of our judges was working all day on the 4th of July to finish up a very critical order that was determinative of the case. And he finished it, and I think I saw it about 6 o'clock on the 4th of July evening. And that is a very wonderful thing that we have those kind of dedicated professionals on our judiciary, because instead of having the client subjected to the expense of a week-long trial, he ruled in our favor and the case was resolved.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't have to go to a 5-day jury trial because it was decided on a matter of law. And it was done because he was willing to sacrifice his holiday to finish this judgment.
Wow. Well, that is amazing. And you do have a phone call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Morning. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you. If you're a person who lives out of state and you're down here on maybe business or visiting or whatever, and you're a witness to an accident, and it eventually ends up until be a trial, are you required to come back to the state of Florida? And do you get supplemented for coming back? And can you somehow get out of coming back?
They would need to go to the state of your residence and take your deposition. That's the remedy for that. You cannot compel people to appear by subpoena if they don't live in the state of Florida. There are some exceptions to that where you could get a commissioner appointed, but there would have to be arrangements made for travel expenses and that sort of thing. As a practical matter, what happens when there is a witness that is out of state and their testimony is material and relevant to a hearing or a trial? You schedule a deposition in the area where they live. You have a commissioner appointed who is a court reporter in that jurisdiction, authorized to administer oath, and you can go there and you can even take a videotape deposition. So you have both lawyers there and the witness with a court reporter and a certified videographer, and you take the deposition and they are videotaped and it appears just like they were in court. And then when you go to trial, you have a video monitor in the courtroom and you play the video deposition, and the jury sits there and here's the questions, here's the answers, here's the cross-examination, and it works very well. We also use that a lot on expert witnesses. It is almost impossible to get doctors to come live to testify at trial. They have surgery, they have schedules, they charge a large amount of money for their time, and so expert witnesses are frequently videotape depositions, and their videotape deposition is played. Sometimes there is no exception to the benefit of having a live witness there. In those cases, when there's someone out of state, I try to make arrangements with them so that they will agreeably come back to Florida at a time that's not inconvenient, and there are provisions that their expenses for travel can be reimbursed.
Oh, wow. Is it worth fighting?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Is it worth fighting a traffic ticket if you're from out of town?
If you want to spend several $1,000s for a $200 traffic ticket, I suppose it depends on how you measure your priorities. But no, you would not find. I don't think, taking depositions. Now, sometimes there is another alternative where the judges, upon proper motion or stipulation with the opposing lawyer, will allow an out-of-town or out-of-state witness to testify by telephone in court in the hearing. They put them on the speaker phone, but you have to have a notary public present where that person resides in order to administer the oath. Because if the judge administers the oath to a voice on the telephone, he has no way of identifying whether that really is the actual person who says it is. You have to make arrangements to have a certified notary public, lawful notary public in that state to be present, to sit there, and at the beginning of the testimony, before they testify, to administer the oath, to swear them to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and then the notary certifies them, and then you go forward and you can question them on the telephone. That works in some cases. In other cases, it doesn't work so well, where you have a lot of documents where you have to ask the witness to identify and to explain terms in a contract, or to identify photographs and that sort of thing.
Right now, the phone line is open if you'd like to call John Fuller, ask a question about the legal system or a legal circumstance you might be in or somebody you know. The number is 622-WOCA. Did you happen to see the story about the guy who was sleeping at the baseball game and he sued ESPN?
Yes, I actually had that on my mind to mention it. My wife and law partner Janet Fuller and I were talking about that yesterday, and I was shocked when I heard about it. I find it hard to, I know none of the facts. I know what's been alleged. I know what was said. There's a case, I can't remember the citation of it, but they use it as a teaching tool in law school even, that says that forever perceived wrong, that does not necessarily mean there's a legal remedy, and that in a society that it is expected by the law that the individual members of society will have a certain degree of thick skin. And in my personal opinion, is a case like that reflects poorly on a lot of aspects of our case, and I know nothing about it, so I don't want to.
But can I just ask
comment on it? But in every case where you sue someone for some legal theory that they did something wrong or they failed to do something that they should have done correctly, that's basically what the theories are.
Right.
And then you have to prove damages. And what are your damages? If you certainly you have a right to privacy, but your expectation of privacy depends upon where you are. If I'm in my home and somebody comes in without my permission and takes an unflattering picture and publishes it, that may rise to the level of invasion of privacy because you have an expectation of privacy. If you're talking on a secure telephone line and somebody taps into it, that's a violation of the expectation of privacy. If you're talking on a CB radio, there is no expectation of privacy because the whole world hears it.
Right.
And if you go to a baseball game with 45,000 other people, you would be hard-pressed, in my opinion, to argue that you have an expectation of privacy that your visage would not be picked up and telecast.
Right.
Whether you're eating a hot dog, cheering, bouncing a beach ball, or taking a snooze.
So his $10 million lawsuit is by himself. He would probably not have a lawyer that would be on his side?
I don't know. He would not have this lawyer.
Because there's too many things he has to prove, it sounds like.
And litigation is expensive. Litigation has a lot of costs. Court reporters get paid. They get paid for transcribing deposition. If you subpoena a witness, you have to send them a check for a witness fee and mileage. If you hire experts, you have to pay them. Litigation is a very expensive proposition.
We're just about out of time, and if somebody wants to squeeze in a quick question, I don't know if you'll be able to have an answer adequately enough. But if we need to see you, that's the best thing, right?
Well, our law firm is Fuller & Fuller. My partner and wife, Janet, specializes in Social Security disability. We have offices in the Villages in Ocala. Our telephone number in Ocala is 352-547-4292. Our toll-free number is 855-534-2565. If you have a legal question, if you've been in an automobile accident or been injured and you feel that there is someone who's responsible for that injury because of negligence, please give us a call and we'll be glad to talk with you. There's no obligation in personal injury cases unless we make a recovery for any fees or costs. And of course, we always note you have 14 days from the time of an injury to seek medical treatment.
And again, call us if you need John's number repeated, or if you can go to our website, you'll see John's name under the guest list every Wednesday at 10:35 on the show Legally Yours. He has his phone number and websites and email all listed there. Thank you, John, as always.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
All right, we'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
Hope we didn't run long.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. There are growing calls for President Obama to visit what's being called by some ground zero of the immigration crisis in Texas.
The border, where thousands of children